trees down galore. See that one that I just swerved around, and then another one right here. It didn't even feel that windy or rainy to be doing all this, but apparently it did. Oh boy, Public Works has its work cut out for it. It's a substantial tree too. Oh, and by the way, you can see I'm in the carnival again. I got another run at 2:30 in the morning, so that like directly bisects what I'm trying to do. I'll probably just go to the gym right at as soon as I get back, just to knock it out and then pass out for a bit so I could hang out with my little nephews when they come by at, I don't know, 1:30 or so. Though knowing my cousin, if the weather stays like this, they might not come tomorrow after church. But wow, this was sneaky. There's like little like lakes all over the place and trees down and stuff. And I can tell by my stove, like the clock on my stove, that power was out during the day. Thank the Lord for small mercies. Of course, I was holed up in the lab much of today. We were pretty busy, and then then I went to the gym afterward. And my boss, if you will, it's his van. I was like 10 minutes late meeting up with him, and he was like upset. He's like one of those guys that's like super punctual for everything, but it doesn't always run that way, because I was kind of like too sweaty to come straight downtown to grab his car and drop off mine. So I ran home to change like as fast as I could, but I ended up being like 10 minutes late. Oh well. He's kind of running himself ragged though. He has a run this evening himself. Normally he would have done the 2:30 run, but he's getting back in town. Like, I guess he's going to, it must be New York City, to like LaGuardia or JFK. He's getting back right at around 2 in the morning, and then to go and do a run to Logan, like, to Boston right after. That's just asking for it. I hope he doesn't like that he's safe and isn't like, about to like run himself off the highway or something. I remember one time, I think I've told you this story before, my mom just like unduly woke me up at an early hour, like 5 in the morning, to look at her phone, because like I guess she dropped it and kind of like dislodged her battery. This is like back before the iPhone days, which she's due for a new one. Sorry, I'm yawning a little bit there, I'm tired. She's due for a new one, but I just don't have a random $1,100 sitting around to buy her a new phone like last time. What kind of party is that? And what was I gonna say? Yeah, she just bust my door open. This is back when like I was upstairs, like staying with my mom and my aunt. So this must have been like, I don't know, like 2009 or so. And she's like, here, fix it. My phone won't work. And then I'm like in the middle of sleep, whatever, like not thinking at all. Actually, this ties directly into a story today. I must have like subliminally popped into my head, because I kind of had something substantially similar happen at the shop today. So anyway, I'm like, it's 5 in the morning. I just went to, because like, my shift didn't start until 10, so I wouldn't get up until maybe like 8:30. So I was up until some stupid hour, like 2, right? So like, you start doing that math. I'm like, I can function on 6.5 hours of sleep or whatever it was. And then I tried to go back to sleep, couldn't, but I was like out of PTO, so I had to go to work. And man, that was the worst day ever. Like I literally almost ran off the highway several times. Like it was one of those days where I was just tired from like off the jump. That wasn't a good snap. There we go. Off the jump. So, usually when you have like a tired day, it's like midday around lunchtime, maybe like noontime or something like that. But this time I was just tired off the jump, and I was like, man, this is gonna suck. And sometimes your body will just kind of snap awake, because it knows that you won't be able to lie at rest anytime soon. But I just stayed tired this is one of those lakes I was talking about. I just stayed tired the entire day. It was like so miserable. There's nothing like having to work like an 8-9 hour day with an hour drive each way, because I was working in Southington, Connecticut. So this is like no. So this is actually, I'm shortchanging myself. This wasn't even 09. This was when I was working at the Hartford Insurance, which I left in '06, so it had to have been between '04 and '06. So actually, this is like shortly after I finished my MBA. Let's split the difference and call it like '05. And I was so tired. Like, I almost ran off the highway several times. It was like incredibly dangerous. My day on the job was just, it was miserable. The job didn't pay dick to begin with. So, and then coming home, I had like 55-hour drive, but it's slower because like, when you're tired, you're driving slower. And it was just so miserable. And then it messed up my whole evening because like, back in those days, like in '04, '05, '06, I'm still like, chasing hoop dreams. So like, I come home, recharge real quick, powder my nose, so to speak, and then head right to the gym to work out for a couple hours, get some shots up, do some post work, whatever. Couldn't do that. I just had to pass out immediately. But I came home as soon as I walked in, and my mom was like, she knew that I was going to be upset because like I'm like one of those people, I can't go back to sleep once I wake up. She knows that. I have many stories along those lines. And she started yelling at me because she knew I was going to be upset. As soon as I unlatched the door and came in, I was like, not to yell, but to like, talk to her. And she's like, don't worry, I won't ask you for anything ever again or whatever. Like, I'm like, this is the, love my mom, of course, but this is the reasonable adulting that I had bring me up. And you figure in 2004, I'm still like a young man. I'm 24 years old, right? So I'm as resistant as I could possibly be to like, short sleep and all that or whatever. But yeah, it was just miserable. So anyway, today at work, we were short-staffed as we've been. My boss, the shop owner, and she's dealing with her own stuff, so I have a lot of grace for her, right? So she's running the shop. She's also like, she's a microbiologist by trade, so she teaches at the community college in the evening. And unfortunately, her the doctor, or retired doctor now, but her husband, who's been retired now for a couple years, he's in the early stages of dementia and possibly Alzheimer's. So, from what I understand, from what everyone tells me, I noticed that she comes in later now. Like, I came in at like 9:58, and she didn't even come in until like closer to noon with the doctor. And from what I understand, understandably, not to use the same word or same root word twice in the same sentence, he's a handful to get ready in the morning. And I've seen him a couple times get belligerent, because that's like one of those things that happens when you have like dementia or Alzheimer's. Like, your social graces are no longer there anymore, and he'll just get really like belligerent and saying all kinds of stuff. I won't say what it is, because it's not really him. It's him in his like diminished form or whatever. I guess thankfully for them, he's like 75, 76, right? So it's not like one of those unfortunate situations where it's early onset dementia / Alzheimer's at like 60 or something like that. Like, so in a lot of ways, he's kind of like lived his life. But what I've noticed is he's lost quite a bit of weight. He usually has kind of like that old man belly, and now he's just like slim. Still has a little belly, but he's just like slim now. So I'm sure his appetite's not the same. I've had even people, the girl that worked at the pizza shop, like her family owns it, but like, now she's married, so she works for her husband's business, a Turkish girl. It's funny because she even said, even before, she's like, yeah, I just want to be a housewife. Or that's kind of like the housewife way, right? It's like where you just become like an admin or a secretary for your husband's business or whatever, but it's like kind of like one of those like wink like easy jobs or whatever. So she seems happy. They have a child, and I think she might be on her way to another, and that's what she always wanted. I've known her for a bunch of years. Call her R. But anyway, she came into the shop like last week before, and then she texted me, and we're also Instagram friends. And she's like, so what's up with the doctor? Like, he seems kind of weird. And I was like, yeah, he has like a bit of an illness. He's kind of like in a diminished capacity. I tried to use fancy terms, but like, she knew what I was talking about. And she's like, yeah, I could tell. So it's to the point now, for a while it was like kind of concealed and no one could really tell. Now it's becoming, noticeable. Oh, don't tell me he's about to block the road. All right, good. So I'm trying to get my weekend Jolly Ranchers. So anyway, at the shop today, and I give you all that lead in. So my boss, N, the shop owner, she's a microbiologist, a woman of science, very even keeled, soft spoken, or whatever. I mean, she can get hot tempered sometimes, but for the most part, we don't really have any run-ins like that. I've been at the shop for 14 years now. In November will be 14 years. And anyway, I'm in the middle of, because we're short-staffed, because our doctor situation is really fluid. We have a doctor that we basically import, and she only works like 2 weeks at a time, every other week or every 2 weeks. So half the time we're like, as a result, the doctor's what drives a lot of the traffic. So, we have like 3 people on the floor. It's me, and we'll call her B and S and A and D, but like one of them's like super part-time. Actually, 2 of them are super part-time because S, sorry to use all these initials, but I'm not gonna dox him here or whatever. She's basically retired. Like S is like 79 years old. She might even be 80 by now. And she just had like reconstructive, was it knee or hip surgery? So she can only work Saturdays are really just a short day anyway. It's like a 6-7 hour day in theory. Sometimes I've been there for 8 hours, but she can only do like 4 hours anyway. And she's, I don't want to call her like useless, but she's more like a stylist. So she can just kind of like do kind of like hosting more or less in like basic sales, but anything involving like opticianry, like, dotting up patients, or any kind of like interpreting the prescription, whatever, she has to call me. So she's tugging on my arm to help her with the sale, to do like a progressive dot up or whatever. N is calling me because we're trying to like find a file for like basically a runaway tray, which happens often enough. If you ever worked in an optical shop, probably 20% of the job is like chasing down files and prescriptions for patients. And then I had like a timer, like an actual like live customer, like, we don't promise them within an hour. I mean, in this case, I promised her within a half hour because it was one of those things where she was going to leave, if we didn't kind of do the job on the spot for her daughter. Cute girl, even though she's like a little tubby, but like she's like pretty in the face. So I have those. And then I was also scheduling an appointment for someone. So I had like, depending on how you want to look at it, 3-4 things going at once, and they all knew it. So S comes up to me, and I'm like, I kind of give her like, the wag finger politely. I'm like, yeah, just give me a moment. I'm under a little bit of duress right now. And then N is calling me like urgently, and they all know that I'm in the middle of something, and they're all just either way, just still relentlessly pulling on me. And then B comes by, and she's like, yeah, so I need help finding this file. What's the lady's name? Even though I told her already, but she has kind of like, she has her own reasons for like a little bit of short-term memory loss, so I'm not trying to shit on her or anything like that, but it's like all 3 of them are pulling on me at the same time, plus what I got going on. They know that I have something going on. I very politely say I'm under duress. Still, it doesn't matter. And what I've noticed, that doesn't happen to anybody else. Now, I don't have like a control for for my experiment, if you will. There are 2 other guys that work there, or 3 other guys, but I don't see it happen to them. One of them says that it does during the week. Of course, I'm not during the week because I just do this, part time. But I know with me, it happens routinely. In all, and obviously being raised by 2 women, I've had that happen to me many times where I'm clearly rushing or I'm in the middle of something, and my mom will just like, it doesn't matter. Come handle this, whatever I'm asking you to do right now. Much like that story I told you from apparently, 20-something years ago. Not apparently, it was 20-something years ago, because of what my job was later that morning. So I know it was at minimum 20 years ago. It might have been 22 years ago. And it just doesn't matter. And what I've concluded is a lot of women, they kind of see guys as like a workhorse. Which is why a lot of guys kind of scoff at I want to be a stay-at-home wife or whatever, because it's like a pie in the sky. Like, in terms of the division of labor, yes, raising children is like a hard job, or an important job, I should say. But really, the heavy lifting is like the first like X amount of years. Once the child is like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old and they're they're fairly autonomous. Certainly you're not wiping their ass or anything like that. That's germane to this conversation because I was literally having that conversation with a friend of mine, actually a girl that I used to date, but she kind of takes umbrage with me because I didn't want to like lock it down or anything. And yeah, we were actually just kind of like quasi arguing and discussing that situation. She's like, yeah, I prefer like a conservative man and I want to stay home and homeschool. But I've noticed that that's become, obviously there's like a political dig there where they're like public schools are teaching their kids trans and all this other stuff, whatever, which is like not the case, but like whatever. But it's also become like an avatar for, I want to be the stay-at-home wife, but as a way of like running cover for the fact that I don't really want to work. I'm going to say, like, let me stay home with the kids and homeschool them and run the house or whatever, which me, I don't run a messy house. I'm not a messy guy. Obviously kids can be tough, whatever, but you know, I was a 5-year-old once, right? So for me, as of now, we'll see what happens once the time comes. I think I'm gonna do what my cousin did, and the wife will stay home for like the first 5 years, but not because I'm being like protectionist and I want my kids to be with the parent at all times and I don't trust anyone to watch my kids or whatever, yada yada yada. If I stayed here in Springfield, it would like 100% be my mom doing it, because she's qualified and was in early childhood for the better part of 20 years, and she's family. She's my mom, for as much as she is a pain in my ass or whatever. Can I go? I don't know if all right, I guess oh, I see what happened. Because of the rain and the wind or whatever, it knocked out the stoplight. So even though it's like not green, it doesn't matter. That's why people were beeping me. Anyway, so, but yeah, I'll probably be in the mid-Atlantic by then. At least that's the plan. Of course, you know, we make plans and God laughs, right? But to me, let's say I'm making a decent salary, right? So let's say I'm making like, I don't know, like 150, 160, right? All that really is two people making like 80, which is perfectly, in 2026, that's just regular money these days, right? So like, my whole thing is I'm not busting my hump to when both of us can easily make that same salary or whatever, just to say that like I have a stay-at-home wife. But we'll see. Maybe my stance will soften. Actually, the better example, I gave a bad example, right? So let's say I can make like 150, right? But she can make like 90, right? So that's like pretty regular money, especially by then. And I'm making my, you know, similar, like, or 100, 120 even, right? I'm not like subsistence living off of like 120 or even 140 when the two of us together can make like 210 or whatever. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand that. Obviously it's an ideological thing. People can do what they want to do. I do worry about like the Board of Education or the Department of Education and like public school funding and all that. And I know that certain areas like North Carolina, for whatever reason, has like a particularly high level of homeschooling, but it's really more of like an ideological thing, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to squeeze the liberal industrial complex, really, right? So they get less federal funds and they can eventually like phase it out if that's possible. So obviously I'm a liberal, right? So I believe in that sort of thing. But even beyond that, I mean, I went to bad schools, I went to good schools, but they're all public schools, and public school can be a wonderful thing. So, you know, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But that wasn't even the crux of the story. Like, the way that women are socialized to deal with men, they'll just pile it on. It doesn't matter what the situation is or what it looks like. They'll just keep piling it on, because they think that we're just like pieces of iron. And in a lot of ways, you know, empathy that doesn't really extend to men. Like, our personhood is just like, well, you know, you're made to handle it, you can handle it, whatever. And I've seen it routinely. This is not like a one-off. I've seen that routinely. Whereas with women, we kind of treat them with kid gloves, no matter the age. This could be like grown women. They could be like in their 60s, 70s. They can be in their 20s. They could be in their 40s or whatever. And if there's any like sweat on the brow, so to speak, of a woman, people just automatically sort of like, and I do the same thing. You know, you start to become very empathetic and like, oh, let me see if I can lighten your load, or I certainly, far be it for me to add anything to it or make it any more difficult. But, you know, men don't get the same grace. Anyway, I'm rambling. So I have my task at hand in a few hours by 2:30. I'm debating whether am I tired? Do I need to take a nap? I don't have that superpower to, unless I'm just like exhausted, I can't just like take a nap, you know, at will. I wish I could. But in any event, I'm gonna run a couple errands. I'll probably just have an early dinner now, since things are gonna get weird, and I'm probably eventually going to lay down for like a 2 or 3 hour nap before I set out, because there's not gonna be enough time when I get back to have like a full night's rest before I get Sunday going all over again. So anyway, first world issues, right? The Lord is faithful. Stay with me. God bless.